What makes a marriage successful?
So there's a multi-layer answer there, but let's start with some pieces. I believe that successful marriages make it to having a sense of we. So we are in this together, that we're in a team. And I don't think that can happen except for when you have the level of commitment that is in a marriage. And obviously,
Mm,
these days, that level of commitment can change rapidly, right? But the way we set
yeah.
it up, the promises you make to be in it for the rest of your life allow you to transition over to that we instead of the you and me. And so a successful marriage makes it to we, see themselves as a team, and works on building the connection throughout their relationship. Those are two of the key pieces. So there are a couple of things I didn't include there that a lot would, and we can explore why that is.
Yeah, I want to know what happens when, let's say, one partner says, "Let's do this. Let's start saying we," but maybe you're in a unhealthy balance and one partner just doesn't want to do it anymore. Or I want to cover that, and I also want to cover what would you say, like, like, where does the breaking point of, like, let's say, divorce, or is that even like something you help with too?
So let's start with the last question first.
Okay.
Since
Okay.
I created the Save the Marriage system, a lot of people
Yeah.
think that I'm going to be the one who says no divorce, no
No.
matter what.
Yeah.
And that is not the case. I do
Okay.
believe that there are
Okay.
times when a marriage becomes irretrievable, that you can't
Ah.
recover.
Okay.
So practically speaking, you can't get back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so saving a marriage is the frame of that is if you want to work on figuring that out, let's head in
Mm-hmm.
that direction, right? It's not a
Mm.
guarantee that it's going to happen, but it is a guarantee that you have an opportunity of using the best information to say, hey, I did what I could to see if something could be
Mm. Mm-hmm.
done. So I'm giving a chart, a method or an approach for people who don't know how to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
that is a central problem. We don't have a lot of good education on what does it take to build a great marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And because we don't have that, marriages often find themselves in deep trouble because they didn't know the direction ahead. So now back from that to the first, what if you say, hey, let's do this we thing and your spouse doesn't want it? I don't actually suggest that people are that direct with a spouse when you're in a troubled relationship.
Mm.
I believe you start yourself to see things that way. So some of what we is about. Let's just kind of focus on a couple of things. I'll kind of make it obvious. So if we think about it, one of the big trouble spots for marriages, argument spots, is finances.
Yeah.
So the reason that money is a topic of fighting is because you're treating it as yours or mine, not
Mm.
our money.
Yeah.
It's a completely different conversation if you're asking the question, how do we deal with our money versus what do you get to choose? What do I get to choose? What's my money? What's your money?
Mm.
That's a different framing. That's you versus me framing. If it's our resource, which is in actuality the case, right? There's resource
Yeah.
coming into the household and there are resources going out of the household to support your living. And so it is our resource coming in or out. How you mentally divide that in your head is fictional. It's mental accounting, as the psychologist of money will talk about. But the reality is, it is our resource. And if you're
Mm.
looking at it yourself from that perspective, that changes the conversation and how you go about conversations. And I can decide in my own thoughts to see it as our resource. I
Mm.
don't have to wait for my spouse to say, yeah, let's do that. I can do it for myself. And if I do that, that begins to infect the relationship in a positive way, right? You're bringing a
Mm-hmm.
different
Mm-hmm.
viewpoint in and how you're viewing it. So let me just kind of draw in one more piece that you said. What if you start using those kind of, we, us, our pronouns? You don't have to announce that either, but there is research that shows that when couples use those pronouns, they have stronger marriages versus when they talk about
Mm.
my, you, And if
Yeah,
there's
I,
talking
yeah.
about we, us, our, my, you, I, us, I mean, me, I, and you, I guess are the ones.
Yeah.
When people talk in those terms, they often have higher levels of conflict than when people reference the us and our of a relationship. So
Mm,
it's possible that there's a back and forth, and I think that is the case. But I can choose to start talking about us and our by my own languaging, whether my spouse is doing that or not.
so one of the first like fundamental steps you suggest is like going over your finances and the way you talk about just resources in general, do you think?
Yeah, so I think it's a thought process behind that. I don't think it's even having to go over your finances as much as understanding that's how you view it. Let's go with
Mm,
another big conflict just to kind of springboard a little bit. Let's take a couple. Another
mm.
big conflict point is the in laws. Couples often fight about your
Yeah,
family, my family. And
yeah.
what they're missing is that when they join together, it's our family. Their family is my
Mm,
family. My
mm,
family is their family, right? And it's
mm,
our family. And so while the families themselves may not view each other that way, I'm viewing my wife's family as my family, and she's viewing my family as her family because we have
mm,
now formed this our connection. And that changes the conversation. Instead of talking about, well, your family is so messed up, it's our family has some issues because every family does. How do we go about that? Let's dig a little
mm,
deeper though
mm,
into parenting because that's another point of conflict.
mm.
If you see it as our parenting together, it doesn't mean that you have to match up, but you have to be able to support each other's parenting. And the fact that
Yeah.
you come at it differently is okay if you say our way of doing this together is what's important.
Yeah, the first thing that come to mind is like my parenting style is different than your parenting style, right?
Always going to be. My
Mm,
thoughts about money are going to be different than my spouse's thoughts about money, but seeing the resource as our resource, you can
mm,
bring in different perspectives. So my belief in the power of the us or the we is that it brings in multiple perspectives on everything. Instead of it having to be we have to see things just alike or we have to be oppositional, I'm going, we have a broader perspective. Like we have more eyes and perspectives on this. One of the false beliefs about this whole we or us thing is that it's about seeing everything alike. And I don't think so. It's
uh,
being able to support that you may see things differently, but it's our thing to deal with.
mm,
We all have a different viewpoint. We all have a different paradigm, just to use that term. A paradigm is a perspective that's built over our experiences, our education, all those pieces that go into making us who we are. So
mm-hmm.
we never are going to be exactly on the same page. However billion people there are on the planet, that's how many paradigms there are of viewing things. Maybe it's just a little different, but you fool yourself into thinking it's the same, and then you find yourself in trouble with that too. So can we see things differently and come to understand that? And so I think that one big distinction I would draw into those successful marriages is they're able to recognize that they can understand where they're coming from without agreeing with exactly where they're coming from. I can understand how my wife sees something. I don't have to agree with it, but she has to feel understood, and we have to be able to
Mm, mm-hmm.
feel that we're understood by our spouse. And if we do that, then we can begin to negotiate how to get to something that represents where we can both go together.
Mm. So I wanted to, before we move forward with more questions, I wanted to just let the audience know, like, give us a little bit more about who you are, what's your background, the work that you do, and also, do you work with only married couples, or do you also work with just relationships in general and couples?
So my work is with individuals or couples,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have to be married. But if I work with a couple, I'm doing it because they both are committed to moving forward.
Ah,
If they're both not committed to moving forward, I work with a person who is committed to moving forward. If
oh,
you work with a somebody who is not committed to moving forward, they end up being committed to moving backward.
oh,
Just in opposition, and so that's not
yeah.
very helpful. So I started my career. So my formal training was back in the 80s, 90s as a therapist,
Mm,
and pretty quickly realized that I didn't do things in a kind of a therapy way. I did them in a coaching way. And so after I got
mm,
my PhD in therapy, I immediately did 3 years of training in coaching, which back in the
ah,
90s there wasn't a coach on every corner. So I did
yeah.
an intensive 3 year training program. And at the end of that, one of the things that I realized is, as much as I had been critiquing marriage therapy because of how ineffective it is, I needed to say, this is what I think. And that ended up being the kind of the beginning point of the Save the Marriage system.
Ah, okay. And what is it exactly that you think about the that was what do you think was wrong with the old way of
With
marriage
therapy.
therapy and what or with therapy in general, I
Yeah.
guess, and then yeah.
Yeah, so the research, and so let me back up. I was in the midst of my training and I was going, why are we not getting good results? I'm looking at my peers and we were all doing supervision, right? We had these supervisors who've been doing the work for years. I'm looking at my peers going, why are we not successful with couples? And by the way, why are my mentors and supervisors not successful with couples? Why is it that we've got a problem here? And so I started digging into the research. And the research shows that 50% of couples who go to therapy still end up divorced, which is
Uh,
suspiciously like the general population anyway,
yeah, like
right? That
50%, right? Yeah.
it's about the same. And
Wow.
only 10 to 15% say that therapy was helpful at all.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's 1 to 1.5 people out of every 10 who go to therapy, or couples that go to
Wow.
therapy, say that. So out of 100 people, 10 of them would say, yeah, it was somewhat helpful. 50% of them would still get divorced. And
Mm,
so to me, I mean, I'm just to use a
mm-hmm,
metaphor.
mm,
If you go to the doctor and the doctor says, you know what, you need this procedure, and I got to
mm.
tell you, 50% of the people who have it die, and only 10 to 15% say that it helped them at all, would you be signing up for that therapy? And I would not
Mm,
be. And yet, that's
yeah.
exactly what we're doing in marital therapy. So, why is that? One reason is because in the United States, where I'm most familiar with licensure, but I've talked with other people in other countries, and it's the same there, you're licensed as a therapist. How you choose to practice, who you choose to see, that's up to you within your what you consider to be your professional parameters. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say that I am licensed as a therapist and I notice that I have a lot of couples coming to my office. I'm not trained as a marital therapist, but I have a lot of people I could see. And so
Uh,
I could say, well, I do marital therapy without the training. And there is a difference in orientation between an individual therapist and a marital or family therapist. One
mm-hmm,
does intrapsychic and the other looks at the systems of what's going
mm,
on.
mm,
And you can't mix and match. I say that having been trained in both modalities, you can't mix and
mm,
match. That those are distinct approaches. So a therapist who is seeing couples, but they don't have a couple training, are going to struggle with guessing who their client is. You have two people in your office. And if you're doing marital therapy, you do have to have both people there as opposed to relationship coaching where one person can be there. So they have two people there. And my question many times has been, so who's your client? And many times the individual therapist will say, well, I mean, it's who contacted me, or okay, well, it's both people who are there. And the answer is neither of that. It's the relationship. That's the client.
mm,
And so the first problem is an orientation of the therapist or lack of training.
mm-hmm.
The second thing that has to do with the therapist is that many times the marital work has defaulted to a communication as we've got to fix the communication. And so many times people go and they get communication techniques from the therapist. It's not a communication problem, though. I've sat with couples for 25, 30, 35 minutes after they've just come in and said, you need to teach us how to communicate better. I will have heard them all that time, and I will have understood every single word, every single sentence, and they understood each other. There's not a communication problem. It's what they're communicating. But if you default to communication, fixing communication makes couples much more effective in their fighting, but it doesn't change the problems in their relationship. So the second thing is where we drip down to in our culture of what gets addressed. Then there's another problem, and that is that couples or one person often is the one pushing for the therapy. So couples come in, but one person is the one pushing to be in therapy. So the other person is resistant. And when you're resistant, you tend to try to convince people it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's human nature. It's called psychological reactance. And psychological reactance is the idea that even if you know it's going to be good for you, if you feel like somebody's telling you, you'll resist. We know that teen years.
Autonomy.
Well, and so you just think back, the teen years when a parent is saying, here's what you need to do. And a teenager's like, oh, you can't tell me what to do. Even if they're like, yeah, I should be eating my veggies. You can't tell me what to do. I'm going to eat junk food, right? That's the same thing. And it's just in adult versions that happens. And so you end up with
that freedom aspect.
Yes.
Because people want to have that personal autonomy. But if you tell them, they have to want to do it themselves, not be told it, right?
Exactly. So they're dragging their feet. And a therapist can't drag someone into therapy. And then if you've got an individual therapist who now has a resistant spouse and a spouse who wants to move forward, they're likely to default to the spouse who doesn't want to and say, okay, now that we know that you don't want to move forward, what do we do? Right. And so many times people would come to me and say, I don't understand it. We went to therapy twice or once, and suddenly the therapist is going, yeah, I think you need a divorce. That's not what I was there for.
Oh, wow. Have you ever said that?
Have I ever said that?
The
times that I've said it, it's because there was abuse involved. And I truly believe that if it's an abusive relationship, that is not the time to save it, because you're not creating that connect. There's no way to have that when you're in fear. So yes, I have said it, but that is why. My belief is that my job as a therapist or as a coach, relationship coach, is to be on the side of the relationship. I think you have to be pro-relationship. It's kind of back to the doctor. I go to the doctor and I'm holding my hand at this weird angle, and the doctor goes, yeah, that arm's broken. Do you want to do something about it? That's not what I want my doctor to say. I want him to go, that arm is broken and we're going to fix it and make it as strong as possible. So a pro-relationship therapist starts with, let's see what can happen since you're coming to me for help with your relationship. Let's see if we can help the relationship. If not, let's figure out how it needs to go forward healthily.
Solution-oriented. Right.
Get to where a better place, right? Yeah, so that's the solution. So all of this means that therapy has proven itself to be not particularly effective. Now, that said, I've had many conversations, and I'll say the same stats, and people will say, therapy was helpful for us. And I'm like, yeah, 10 to 15%. So you just told me an anecdote. Yeah. I'm telling you the evidence from the research. Yeah. And the evidence from the research looks at, lots of different research. There was a meta-analysis that showed this. So it looked at all of the research that was out there and said, yeah, it's 50% effective, or 50% divorce and 10 to 15% effective. Not great statistics.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about relationships in general, and specifically, let's say people have certain beliefs, expectations, negative connotations. What advice would you give to somebody starting out in a new relationship, and maybe one of them was divorced or has like a divorced spouse with kids, or maybe they don't have kids, but they just feel weird because this person was divorced, but they want to start a new relationship with them?
I do think it's important, if somebody goes through a divorce, to ask the question, why did we end up there? what was my role in that? Now, there are times when your role was you happened to marry somebody who was very unhealthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that still is important to ask the question, why did I choose that? Why was I attracted to that person? So I think it's important to figure that out. But if that wasn't the case, if you're like, yeah, we couldn't figure it out, why couldn't you figure it out? Why couldn't you figure out what to do with marriage? And I'm not saying that to blame as much as to say, if you don't solve that question, if you don't figure it out, you'll replicate. If you don't know why you made a
Mm,
mistake. So, I mean, let's go with the sports example, right? If you, I play pickleball. So let's say that I keep doing my forehand the wrong way over and over and over, and I'm never learning how to do it better.
mm-hmm.
All I'm doing is make it more a permanent piece of how I do a forehand, right? I'm practicing poorly. I'm playing poorly because I didn't ever fix it. I didn't figure out what the mechanics were behind it. Same thing here. If you never figure out the mechanics of why your relationship fell apart, you're going to replicate it because you didn't figure out how to do it differently the next time. So I do think
Mm,
it's important to go, okay, what was my role in this? Where did I help create this problem? So that I don't do it the next time. Not so that I can chastise myself and be upset, but so I don't replicate that the next time. Does that make sense?
yeah, but what about, so I'm also asking about the person. So let's say there's one person that is divorced. Uh, this is an example. One person is divorced, they have kids and an ex um, baby mama or baby daddy, and they're divorced already. And then you have the other person that wants to start a relationship with this person, but they have a weird, like, negative expectation. Like, how am I gonna start new? Like, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to start new with somebody who maybe has a past? And it could be any past, but that's like the example that I could
Hmm.
think of.
Yeah, so there are a couple of pieces that are embedded in that. Let's see if we can just tease some out of it. A question I would have is, if you're having a hard time moving beyond that, how
Hmm.
did you get into this relationship anyway? Like, why step into a relationship that you have a block on, right?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
was that? What was
What's
that
the
about?
block? Yeah.
Well, or why did you choose to go in that direction? I mean, obviously, it
Ah.
could be that you get into a relationship and you go, "Oh gosh, I didn't know you were divorced and had 4 kids and whatever else." I
Oh,
mean,
like you didn't even know it at all.
that's a possibility, right? And then to ask the question, so let's divide out a couple of things. I do not believe, and I want to say this very clearly. I do not believe that love by itself is the magic formula for having a great relationship.
Mm,
That doesn't mean there shouldn't be love there.
yeah.
It's just that love is not going to win the day.
Right.
So you can realize that you love somebody, but you cannot find a way forward with them,
Mm,
and
yeah.
decide that that's not a relationship you'll pursue. Just because you
Mm,
feel love, connection, attraction with somebody doesn't mean that that's the right person for you. And so I
yeah.
believe that there is the step of going, is this the right person? And once you've said, yep, that's the right person for me, then you make it right. What do you have to do to make this relationship to be a strong, loving relationship? So let's say that you go, you know what, I have a problem with this. I don't know if I can get beyond the divorce, the kids, or
Yeah.
whatever.
The
Then
past.
that's a point of going, I'm not willing slash able to do that.
So the individual has to like reflect and ask them, maybe based on their values, personal beliefs, if this is right or not.
Yeah, and so what you're describing sounds less like values
Okay.
and more like discomfort with the relationships that are already out there,
Like
right?
a certain
That's
dynamic.
the dynamics that are there. I mean, I guess if somebody, if for it's a value there, would go, I don't believe in divorce. You're divorced, so I don't believe in that. That would be a value
Ah,
position,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, they're just like, I don't know how to navigate that dynamic.
Yeah.
So let's say you get beyond that
Mm-hmm.
and you go, yeah, I'm willing to navigate that. You're going into a situation that has some knowns to it. Like there
Mm.
are going to be some dynamics of figuring out how to be
Mm-hmm.
in relationship to this other person. Because if you've got a child, that
Yeah.
other person is involved forever,
Yeah.
or for life
Step
anyway.
parents issues.
And how you relate to that.
Mm.
So that can be a sticky situation. And the question, so we're going to go all the way back to where we're beginning. The question is, how can I and this my spouse
Mm-hmm.
come together in order to deal with that situation as best we can? Because I can't do it by saying you screwed up here,
Mm.
you've got this mistake out here, but to say we are joining together, knowing that this situation is there. That's a piece. But I want to key in on one word that you said there: expectations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that expectations are often the poison of a relationship.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So there are there are two levels of expectations. There are the expectations that I say, they're explicit expectations. I expect you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are the implicit ones where I just believe that this person should do this. Like I have the internal expectation. The internal ones are often based on our assumptions about how relationships are supposed to be. And any supposed to be is actually an expectation, right? That's one of
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
ways we disguise an expectation. It's supposed to go that way. Well, that's an expectation you had.
Yeah.
And so if I've got them internally, they can come from prior relationships. They can come from prior experiences. There's a lot of places, culture, movies, books, wherever. They can,
Yeah.
the expectation of happily ever after, that's
The
an expectation,
influences. Yeah.
right? Right. And so it creates these things that I don't even know are back in there. They're subconscious for me, as opposed to the conscious stated ones of I expect you. So
Mm.
the I expect you doesn't ever work real well. And so working on an agreement would be a better approach. Can we agree on this?
What about the biggest one that I expect you not to have infidelity?
You agreed to that
Ah.
already. I'll tell you when you agreed to it. I mean, at least in all the weddings I've ever been to,
Yeah.
in the wedding vows,
Oh, the wedding
part of
vows
that
say.
vow is to say, and I will keep all others at a distance. They phrase it differently,
Ah.
but that phrase is made in the vows. So you've agreed to that.
That's an agreement. Hmm. And the
So
commitment.
that's
Yeah.
there are, and it's always interesting to me. So let's just for a moment visit our vows for a
Okay.
minute, right? Most vows still have the traditional, the good days, bad days, 6 days, healthy days, rich days, poor days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What days are left?
Hmm.
I haven't been able to find any days that fall outside of the parameters that we just set, that no matter what the day brings, we're going to be
Yeah.
together in this, right? And that we will keep all other relationships at a distance from this to keep it safe. That's a
Okay.
boundary, right? That's creating boundaries. It's creating an expectation that we're in this together, an agreement of that. We're on this path together. We've agreed to that. No matter what the day brings, I will be with you. And I will make sure that I keep our relationship safe. Those are agreements that are built into those vows.
Mm.
So we already have those as agreements. It's just that most people say them so fast
Yeah. They
that they
just.
don't really think that about that. And yet that
Yeah.
is an agreement. So it is possible to say, I thought we agreed to not cheat.
Okay.
And if somebody were to say, when did I do that? It's when we made our vows. That is
So
an
maybe
agreement.
before somebody listening to this, before you get married, really study up on the vows.
Be conscious of what you're pledging. And that one of the, so I've done some weddings and recommitment ceremonies, and I'm always
Mm.
going, listen to what you're saying because it will guide you. So
Mm.
let's go back. You asked what makes for a successful marriage. When I'm doing different retreats and seminars on marriage, one of the things I often ask is, what is your North Star of your relationship? So if you think of a North
Mm.
Star, North Star navigate. I mean, northern hemisphere. It's the
Yeah,
navigation,
yeah.
right? For in old days when the storm comes, whips us around, the boat's been swirling around. We don't know
What will
which way to
keep
go.
us
Where's the
going,
North Star?
basically, yeah.
Yeah, there's the North Star. I want to go this way. Okay,
That
now
direction, yeah.
I can navigate because I know what which way north is. So the North Star is your navigational device. Not that it's
Mm,
always going to be front and center, but when you need it, it's there. And so when I ask people, what is your North Star of your relationship? The first one people blurt out is love. Well,
okay.
now tell me what you mean by that. Is
Mm-hmm.
it the feeling of love? Like I feel passion for this person? Because that comes and goes in any relationship. The amount of
Mm,
connection and disconnection can vary. The amount of passion can vary depending on what's
yeah.
going
It's like a
on.
roller coaster sometimes.
And so that's not a good navigation device, right? Happiness,
Ah,
not a great one because there are going to be times in life. I mean, if you want to talk about the one of the biggest stressors for a married couple is the time when their kids are small, and many will report they're
oh,
not
I
particularly
always
happy.
tell people that too, yeah.
And so if they're using that as their baseline, they're going to be going, well, we're not happy. I guess we don't have a North Star. So the North Star that I believe in is commitment. I made a commitment to this
Mm,
relationship.
commitment.
And I'm going, so when things get rough and I'm not feeling the love, I'm not feeling happy, I can still say, but I made a commitment and I'm going to work through that.
Mm,
So, one way that I've often kind of described this to people is imagine that you find out that there is a new law that's passed and you have one car for life. That's all you got. For
one
the
car.
rest of your life, you
Okay.
got one car. How are you going to treat that car? Are you going to
Really
leave it
good.
out in the parking lot to get banged around? Are you going to take it in for service? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
If it were me, I'd keep that thing clean. I would keep it serviced. I would
Yeah.
maintain it as best I could. I would keep it out of crazy traffic. I would not park it
Mm,
near where somebody's going to ram into it. I would
mm,
protect it.
mm.
And that's basically what we're setting up in a marriage. This is your, now this is the, for the rest of your life, this is your relationship. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to protect it? Are you going to treasure it? Are you going to, do maintenance on it? Or are you just going to let it go by the wayside? Lots of couples get distracted by life. I call it hitting the pause button. Like they've got the
Mm,
love, they get married, and then they go, okay, we need to do the parent thing, do the career thing, do the hobbies or
yeah,
friends or travel or whatever thing, but we'll get
yeah.
back to us after it's this busy time, and they disconnect. That's the
Mm,
pause button, right? They hit the disconnect, and then they start building these habits of disconnection.
mm.
So back to the car, are they taking care of the car? Or have they just let it
Yeah.
sit, in some parking
That's
lot
a good
somewhere for
one.
anybody to abuse it?
Hmm. So, what do you think is there a magic formula for a relationship to just feel fulfilling over a long, over a lifetime? And then also, what are your thoughts on compromise?
Well, so compromise usually means that you've got two opposing parties trying to find something that they both can tolerate.
Hmm.
So now let's go back to we.
Okay.
You're no longer talking about the compromise as much as finding the best solution for the we, right? Like that. I've always referenced this as the third option. So let's say
Mm,
that I get this job opportunity and it's the job I want, but we'd have to move somewhere my wife doesn't really want to
hmm,
move,
hmm.
right? And so I could ask the question, do I get what I want or do you get what you want? There's not a
Yeah.
lot of compromise of in that particular situation, right? Either I'm taking the job or I'm not. I'll get what I want or I'm not. You'll get what you want or you won't. It's hard to compromise sometimes in those kinds of things. Or do I ask the third question? What would be best for our relationship? What would
Uh,
further our relationship together? And it may have nothing to do with those two options of taking the job or not taking the job, moving or not moving. There may be another third option that comes out of that because the third options always bring in creativity. Whenever we get to
mm,
the this choice or this choice,
hmm. And one wants one, and the other one wants a different one.
It's great for parenting techniques. So I used to say to my kids, do you want to go to bed in 5 minutes or in 15 minutes? One or the other, right? Because then they had to make a choice, and either one was fine with me. We can go to bed in 5 minutes or 15 minutes. I don't care.
Yeah.
So that, but it didn't let them feel like they had a choice. The problem is that
Mm,
as adults, one or the other is often going to be a problem for the relationship. So then the question is, so what would be a better for us? How can we negotiate this together to find the
uh,
better route forward? That's probably a third option.
uh, that's a good one. Um, and the magic formula for a relationship. Is there one?
Um, is there one? The I've often tried to create equations for
Mm-hmm.
what makes for a successful marriage, and so I think a piece of it is the team process, seeing it as a team. A process is making sure that my spouse knows that they matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
They need to feel that, right? You matter to me, and I want your best. So that is embedded in that, and to stay connected, right? So if the pause button is the problem, you hit the pause button, you're disconnecting. Stay connected. Now, this is where I get the pushback from people who are like, I don't have enough time in the day for spending all that time
Yeah.
that I did when I was building this relationship to
Yeah.
keep doing that. So you're telling me I have to give up everything else? No, but you have to put enough in to keep the momentum moving forward,
The
to stay
effort.
connected with each other,
Yeah.
right? And so the three levels of connection, there's physical connection, emotional connection, and spiritual connection.
Mm,
Physical connection, do we stay connected with each other in loving physical touch? Do we hug each other, hold hands, that kind of thing? Emotional
intimacy.
connection, do we share our day and show our support with each other? Do we make sure that we both feel like we get each other and we support each other? And the last one, that spiritual connection, is, are we both talking about what's most important to us? Like,
Mm,
what are my values? What do I dream about?
beliefs. Yeah.
What am I most fear? Where are the places I want to go? And that doesn't take a lot of time to make sure I'm nurturing those. It's not like you do, 15 minutes of spiritual and emotional and physical a
Mm-hmm.
day.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like, do we make sure that there's room for us to share our day together? Do we make sure that we're staying emotionally connected? Do we periodically talk about what's now important to us? But it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
take the same amount of devotion that we started in the relationship. That becomes almost obsessional for people. When they are falling in love, they have this
Like we
obsessional
lost the
thing.
spark or something, or like we used to do all this, now we don't, like that.
So let's go. We'll go with the spark thing.
Okay.
Let's say you decide you're out in the woods and you're like, man, I don't have a match, but I got to start a fire. You have to work really hard to get that fire going. How hard is it to keep the fire going, though?
Oh, it's easy.
You just keep
You just
feeding it with
feeding
some
it
fuel.
wood or fuel. Yeah.
Doesn't take as much time or energy. So
Yeah.
same thing here. Momentum. Back when I was young, I had some pretty crappy cars to start out with. That meant I was pushing a lot of cars a lot of time. And I remember, like the car would be at a standstill. And the hardest thing was to get it to move. Once I got it moving, it wasn't hard to keep it moving.
Mm-hmm.
Momentum would help
Mm-hmm.
me, right? And it's the same with this. So the energy to start a relationship is not the same energy that's required to maintain the relationship. You can keep it going unless you stop and the relationship comes to a standstill. You hit the pause button and you disconnect. Then it does take a lot of energy to get it going again.
Mm. So, so basically, you just have to put in. If you lost the spark, you have to put in that energy and effort again. Is that what you're saying?
So we'll just use another metaphor. We're just metaphoring today.
Okay.
Let's say that back to pickleball. Let's say that I got played a lot of pickleball, got in pretty good shape with that, and then I'm like, I don't think I'm going to play for the next 2 months. Should I expect the next time I step out 2 months later to go, oh, we're right where we are?
No.
Or would I expect to have dropped? Or let's say I'm a weightlifter.
Yeah.
And if I stop lifting weights for a while, should I expect my muscles to still be there and my
The
capacity
same
to still be
strength.
there?
No. Yeah.
You have to build back up to it. But you also have some muscle memory. And so while it can feel awkward to get back going, and I've met people who are like, yeah, I used to go to the gym all the time. Like, why don't you go now? It's just hard to get back in the habit. Right.
The
That's a
habit.
choice to not get back in the
Back in the
habit.
habit.
And if you go back in, at first you're going to go, this is really weird. This feels odd. I did jujitsu for a number of years up until the pandemic, and I had to pause that. Pandemic was over, and I went back and I was like, this feels so weird now. I mean, the same moves they were still up here, but they weren't here. They weren't in my
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
And I had to do it for several weeks to go, oh, there it is. That now it's coming back. So I have a muscle memory to get back to, but I have to be willing to go back to the muscle memory. I have to be willing to get back to that. And a lot of times people are like, oh, it's gone now. I can't get back to it. They're not putting in the effort. And that's the place where they get stuck.
Okay. So do you think these habits of having a committed, fulfilling relationship, do you think the habits are unique and specific to the relationship, or are there some general habits that make a good relationship?
There are a lot that are specific in how you carry them out. So those three levels of connection I talked about, each couple finds their groove on how they do that. And they tend
Okay.
to have their own patterns. So we named those three patterns: physical, emotional, spiritual. That creates targets if you're trying
Mm,
to figure out where to reconnect. It creates an awareness if you're already connecting of going, oh yeah, that's how we do this. That's how we do this. That's how we do this. Right. So you can see that. But if you have lost that, you can say, okay, how can I add some physical, emotional, some spiritual connection in? And so what people often ask me is to tell them exactly what they should be doing in each one. And my response is a little more than what you're doing now. But I don't know what you're doing. And I don't know how you've gotten used to that. I don't know what physical connection means to you as a couple. You probably knew that pretty well at some point. I don't know what emotional connection, how you do that. Like I've had couples who will, decide that for 20 minutes after they get back from work, there's no interruption. They're going to catch up with each other on the back deck. I know other people that get up at 6 in the morning and have coffee together and do it then. I know people who do FaceTime for lunch. I mean, there are lots of ways you could do it, but to do those three areas is what's most important. And so, yes, the specifics are, is it around emotional, spiritual, and or physical, emotional, physical, and spiritual? But how you do it as a couple, that depends on
okay.
how you've learned it.
And those are the three connection dimensions that,
Yeah.
or are those different?
Yeah. Yeah. So physical, emotional, and spiritual are the three levels or dimensions of connection.
Okay. And then the biggest relationship fears, what are those? And how do we overcome them?
Yep. Good question. There are two that we all carry, and that is the fear of abandonment and the fear of intimacy.
Mm,
And
fear of
they are,
intimacy.
the fear of intimacy is that we will lose ourselves to the relationship. Like I will lose my identity because I am so bonded to this other person. I have to give up myself.
Oh, is that almost like codependency almost?
So that's what we fear. So it's a fear of that happening. Like I would lose myself to this
Yeah, yeah,
relationship, right?
yeah,
It's not that that has to happen. It's not that that's the true risk as much as people fear that. People who have a fear
yeah.
of intimacy have little chance of becoming codependent because they push away from anything that feels like that. People who have a
Mm,
fear of abandonment often slip into that because they're grasping so
clingy.
hard.
Yeah.
And so we all have that. So if
Oh,
we
wow.
come out of a family where maybe our immediate needs were not met when we felt them, we might feel
Mm,
like we were abandoned by our caregivers. So fear of
yeah.
abandonment. Some people were never allowed to have kind of say so of themselves. Like they weren't allowed, if they had an emotion, they
To
were
speak up
criticized
or
for feeling
something.
it. Right.
Yeah.
And that would lead to more of a fear of intimacy. So
Wow.
here's where it gets tricky. Somebody's fear of intimacy can trigger somebody's fear of abandonment, and somebody's fear of abandonment can trigger somebody's fear of intimacy. So we're walking around with
Mm,
these possible triggers in place. So somebody, let's say my spouse has a fear of intimacy, and so I can't feel close, and that triggers my fear of abandonment. What am I going to do? Pursue. If I pursue, what is that going to do with her fear of intimacy but heighten it? And so we keep
Mm,
getting into these cycles where they play stronger and stronger. But if I suddenly pulled back and I went, okay, if that's how you're feeling, I'm not going to have anything to do with you, that would trigger a fear of abandonment. And that could
yeah. How
bring
do you?
them,
It's so like the first thing I think of is it reminds me of the attachment theories, the secure, avoidant, anxious, disorganized, and so let's say, how do we even navigate that? Because like let's say one person is secure and they're
mm,
good and they're okay with giving space, they're okay with understanding, and then let's say the other person when they get into anxious or dramatic moments they just shut down and they just
mm,
don't want to talk. They like what how do we navigate something like that?
yeah. So let me say a couple of words about the theory first.
Okay.
It's not that the theory is based in bad science. The science is
Okay.
really solid when it's applied to kids.
Oh, so it's mainly for kids.
That was where it was, that's the only place that has strong evidence based theory.
Mm-hmm.
We've extrapolated a theory that was applied to actually infants and young children and how they related
Into
to their
adults.
mother. And we've
Yeah,
applied that to adults as if there is no difference between a child and an adult. So
that's
here is
true.
the difference.
Okay.
A child is, so that's attachment theory. So a child attaches to a parent because they need their needs met,
Mm-hmm.
right? That like they can't do it themselves. Can I? Do I have to worry that my spouse is not going to give me food or
Yeah,
comfort or change my
resources.
diaper? No. I want connection. So an adult version
Mm,
of that is connection. And yes, I do need connection, but
mm,
it's not the same as attachment. So here's what we know.
that's
There are
true.
some patterns that people hold on for life, but they don't have to.
It's a
You can
choice.
move beyond. Well, it's is it a choice? It's a choice to decide whether you're going to be captured by it or not. But you have to work on that, right? And because if you bring
Yeah.
those things out of childhood, there are elements that stay with us. We all have traumas from our
Or
past. That's just
tendencies. Yeah.
being human. So do I learn and grow beyond them? That is the capacity. And that's what
Okay.
attachment theory people don't admit to, that you can
You can
say, okay,
change.
yes, I tend to be avoidant, but I don't want to do that. So I'm going to learn some different patterns.
Okay.
Tend to be whatever. And so I can change that. Now, the other piece of that is somebody who should have a secure
A
attachment.
certain, yeah.
If their relationship is falling apart,
It will
would
change.
feel
Yeah.
or feel insecure
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
what they thought was important is suddenly at risk, and so it would make sense to feel insecure. If I could go around and always be secure no matter what's going on
Yeah.
around me, there's something else that's going on. The fact
Yeah.
is that
I've been there.
humans feel insecure even if they have security from their childhood, so they're not bringing some other piece in from their childhood, but just naturally they're feeling insecure from it.
Mm-hmm.
So, so first, insecure or attachment theory is well represented for kids. Not necessarily true for adults. People can choose how or change how they do that attachment and consciously move beyond it. And when people who would normally react securely have a scary situation, they can still act insecurely,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean they're suddenly insecure attachers.
Yeah. We're still human. We're all human at the end of the day.
Still human.
You should create a new one, connection theory for
Well, that's
adults.
my whole thing is based on connection being the central focus of a relationship. And so, how do you do that consciously?
How do you
How do you take that?
consciously connect?
Yeah.
Mm. Well, thank you, Lee, for coming on for this 50 minutes, almost an hour. I have two last questions that I ask every guest. Well, I have more, but we're on for time. What's something you'd like to see change in the world today?
So I think one of the things that we have lost is curiosity with how people see things. I would love
Mm,
to make people more curious
I love
about
that.
how
Yeah,
others see things. Curiosity is the beginning point of understanding. Understanding,
I
empathy,
love it.
both come
Yeah.
from curiosity. So if I could sneak some curiosity into the water, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, that's literally my like motto for this podcast. Stay curious, never give up, keep going. Um, okay, and last question, can you share something that you think would resonate with whoever's listening right now?
Yeah, I believe that the team approach gets us through a lot. And so if I were to put in a nutshell, how do you get started? See it as a team. Start seeing the relationship as a team, and how am I playing on the team? So there, the parts of being a team. How do I play on that team? Can I bring my best
Mm.
playing to it? Right. That's the first thing. Two is to say that the goal of a team is to win, not to be opposed to each other, right? And
Yeah.
so having a team mentality gets you a lot of the way towards getting started again.
And this is for any long-term committed relationship.
Yeah, I mean, if let's broaden it. That approach, if I say it as a parent, I'm a team with my
Mm.
kids. How do we as a family win for my kids' well-being, for the family's well-being? That's still a team. How do I do it with my spouse? How do I do it when I'm on the pickleball court? How do I do it in life? I mean, as a culture, aren't we going? How as a team can we be better as a people?
Oh
If we were to
yeah,
use that, that would change a lot of how we go about life.
that's so true. We need to be on the team of humanity, but we seem to always be having wars or conflicts,
And
right?
now then we're at the team of my little group.
Yeah, or tribal. We're tribal.
That, that's the destructive team.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lee. Um, Thank you for coming on.
No, thanks for having me.
All right.